You have somehow ended up listening to The Stuff That's Real That You Didn't Know Was Real, but also is cool podcast. Or Sturty Dickwer Bayik. Or, never mind.
That's right, ladies and germs. You are listening to The Stuff That's Real That You Didn't Know Was Real, but also is cool podcast. And Kevin Tumlinson, I did not even have to read that off of my computer screen.
I'm still parsing what you said.
I said a lot of words very fast.
A whole bunch of words jammed together, and I don't have the benefit, like the listeners, of hearing the intro of each episode. We should just play. I used to do this with the Wordslinger podcast, just play the intro before I started, so that I was.
Well, it's the same every time. It's just some guy going, "You're listening to The Stuff That's Real."
I know it's the same.
Yeah,
it's about setting the tone.
Oh, you just got to imagine it, man. You should have been imagining it before I pressed record. Exactly 37 seconds before I pressed the record button. You should have known and just started singing it in your head.
Man, we need to load that up and just play it right before
we'll cue it up. We'll cue it up for Kevin. Apparently, he needs that. Anyway,
the Kevin Tomlinson story.
Regardless of whatever Kevin's doing, I'm going to be talking about stuff that's real today. I hope Kevin is too.
I am.
I've got an exciting one. I've got something fun to talk about today. I think this one's going to be kind of cool. Yeah, Kevin will be the judge of that, but I do think this will be something that's cool. It's certainly real, that you didn't know was real. Potentially, some people know it's real. I think most people probably have heard of this thing, and I guess it's cool in a sense. In the sense that's cool to me is a shock factor cool. Okay, so is that enough of a little preface for this?
That's a setup.
We're talking about Kopi Luwak. Okay, you know what that is?
I knew that's what we were talking about.
I figured that's where
I have no idea what that is. No, I don't.
So I didn't know it was called this either, but this is the poop coffee, Kevin Tumlinson.
Oh yes, okay, yes, I do know about this. Yeah,
yeah, and I think I first heard about it in that movie, the Morgan Freeman one, the Bucket List. I think the guy he's in the hospital with, the rich guy, drinks this coffee that's pooped out of like monkeys, and
it's a cat, right? It's a sort of
so it's like a weasel actually. Yeah, it's like in the weasel
family. The most expensive coffee in the world.
Yeah, it's up there. It's up there. It's considered the most expensive. I mean, of course, it depends on where you get it and if it's farmed. And there's some Kona coffee out here that's pretty nuts. There's all kinds of. Everybody's got that. Every country's got their like insanely overpriced coffee. This certainly fits the bill. It's way up there as far as pricing. I'm on the Wikipedia page, which I'll link to. They had a pretty good write up of it, and so it says it's like retail prices reaching $100 US per kilogram, but unfortunately I don't know what a kilogram is because I'm American. I'm guessing that's like a lot or something. $100 per kilogram sounds like it should be a lot. And then that's for the farmed beans, and we'll talk about all this. We'll get into that. So if you get the farmed beans, it's like $100 a pound. Maybe is that ish? Is that right? Kilogram, pound? No.
Yeah, sure.
Or is that 1,000 pounds? I don't know. And then up to $1,300 per kilogram for the wild collected beans. And so that's what I was going to say is this stuff, the Kopi Luwak. It's literally pooped out of an animal called the Asian palm civet, which is like a fusa. It's like a weasel. So it's also called civet coffee. I don't know if I'm pronouncing civet right, but they basically they pick these cherries, these coffee cherries, right, the beans, and they eat them. And as they digest them, they're fermented in their intestines. So these are like fermented beans. So I have to imagine that adds something to the flavor, the fermentation. It's like a kombucha now or something, rather than just coffee. And then they poop them out. And so the idea is that this coffee is better, quote unquote better, because the civets themselves only choose to eat certain coffee cherries. So they'll pick basically the best ones, the tastiest ones. And then when they digest them, the chemicals in there that ferment it and they alter the composition of the coffee bean itself improves the flavor. So like most things that become overcapitalized and in the realm of what rich people only want, these little poor little weasel monkeys have been kind of turned into like, farms. They've been forced in these battery cages like chickens, and they're force fed these cherries. And so there's like, and it doesn't help that these guys are from like the Indonesian islands of Sumatra, Bali, Java, where human rights is leaves a little to be desired, and therefore animal rights is that far behind. So it's these poor little guys are like force fed and probably not treated super well, and so anyway, it becomes a pretty expensive coffee. Even the force fed ones that are on the farms are the $100 per kilogram ones, and so the purists out there that want the real stuff, they have to go scratch the behind the ears of these little animals and coax them into pooping the coffee beans into their hands out in the wild, and so it gets expensive.
I mean, they just find them.
Expensive.
Yeah, in the wild, they go to their territories and just scour the ground for poop, which is what I do every morning with my
I was going to
dog.
say, that's, we do the same thing here in America. But I don't think you turn it into coffee afterwards. Although you may be
What's
missing
interesting
out.
is
You may be missing out.
what's kind of disturbing about these is when you see a photo of their dung, it looks disturbingly like a payday bar. That's what it looks like to me. You know what I'm talking about?
I forgot about that. Yeah, the peanuts and it's all kind of.
That's what it
It
looks
is. It's like
like
kind of a collected mash of peanut shaped chocolate, but it is neither peanuts nor chocolate. So they brew this stuff. I don't know what they do to it. That's what I was trying to find out is, do they like kind of spray off the poop and then
I think
do they clean the beans first, or do they just kind of throw it all in there? And
they clean them. They clean it all up, and they have like those little rack things they use to pan for gold or something.
Yeah.
They have stuff like that. Yeah, gets hosed down in high pressure water, and then they roast it and then they grind it, and just like regular coffee beans. Yeah. If you got a little bit of civet dung clinging to it afterwards, that's bonus.
That's flavor.
That's extra.
That's extra.
That's authentic.
I have to imagine it would be authentic, more authentic that way if there's some little poop flakes floating in the coffee afterwards. I don't know, man. I scrolled down to the taste, because that's really what everyone wonders is, does this stuff actually taste good?
Yeah.
Is it worth it? And I can tell you right now, I don't care what it tastes like. It's not worth $1,300 per whatever gram for me. But I must admit, I'm not really a coffee snob. I like Keurig coffee.
Yeah.
I use my little eco brew, and I pour the beans in, or the grounds in there, and these are like Target coffee grounds. It's not anything fancy. And then once I do that, as if that wasn't enough, I go and load it up with what was the Splenda type stuff, no sugar, sweetener and creamer, and I make it this meal. Yeah, I'm not really so I'd probably get one of these cups of coffee or whatever, and they'd be like, hey, here's some Kopi Luwak, and I would be like, all right, great, where's the cream and sugar? Pour it in there. Let's make this taste like cream and sugar rather than coffee. But
you're a monster.
I know, and I've been told that. I tried to get my buddy from Colorado. He works at the church that he and I work together at the church, but before that he owned a coffee roaster that's still in town and still pumping out coffee. And so he is a coffee snob, and he knows all this stuff. And I was just he couldn't make it, but I wanted to ping him and see what he thought about all this. But it says here on Wikipedia that within the coffee industry, Kopi Luwak is widely regarded as a gimmick or novelty item. And I have to imagine that's true. I mean, I can't imagine anything like that tasting that different, because it's not like these beans completely break down and turn into something else. It's really just kind of the outside of them that would change in the digestive tract, right?
Right.
But yeah, it says there's the Coffee Association of America, Specialty Coffee Association of America states that there's a general consensus within the industry. It just tastes bad. So it's not that it's even that much better. It's that people are like, no, it's literally just the gimmick of it all. Yeah, it doesn't taste better than regular coffee. And I
had always had high hopes. What I think of when I think about this though is a few years ago I saw a sort of on YouTube or something. It was like one of those. The guy was asking people if they would try the world's most expensive coffee, but he wasn't telling them where it came from. Yeah. And one woman said, well, it's not, it doesn't come from poop or something, right? He says, oh no, and so she drank it, and then he revealed, and she was so pissed. She's like, I asked you.
Seems a little bait and switchy, doesn't it?
So,
literally lying to her face.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, this story. I'm reading a story on National Geographic about this right now, and it just breaks my heart what they do.
Oh, see, I couldn't even get into that because I assumed that was what was happening, but I was like, I'm not even going to try to find it because, we stopped doing. There was a company, and I don't remember the name of it, so I'm not going to throw them under the bus anyway. But I think I got a gift card one time for like a shaving company.
Yeah,
it was the beard, the brush, and all that stuff. Well, these brushes that they make are like fox fur, and I'm not going to even link to it, but you can go find out how they harvest these foxes.
I don't want to know.
And it's not good. It's not.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be like a PETA crazy, weirdo, but I do think that there's a lot of countries that are really severely messing up.
Yeah.
And it looks like the Kopi Luwak stuff suffers from the same thing. These civets are sitting there in cages, essentially forced to eat coffee beans for rich people's pleasure.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah,
that's sad.
Yeah. On that note, womp womp. Yeah. It's I don't know, man.
People are weird.
People are weird. But yeah, the bottom line with this thing is it is real. It is something people still do. I don't know why, because I do know.
Well,
why.
at this point,
it's the virtue signaling of it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
at
this point, you're not doing anything that's all that rare now. Back when they first discovered this stuff, it was something that people had to go out and hunt for and find. So that was part of its value, right? That was part of what made it the world's most expensive coffee or whatever.
Right.
It was kind of rare, but it's kind of like when they figured out how to make diamonds. Basically diamonds are worthless now, So
should be anyway, and
should be, but still get charged because the public perception is that there's high value, which tells you a lot about what value actually means.
Amen to that, brother.
Things are worth what people are willing to pay for them, and that's
oh my god, value. Thank you. That's literally it's not the price. Price is not value.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, why don't you lift us up here a little bit? That was a little turn for the depressing. Why don't you make us happy? If you don't have a happy show, then I'm just going to stop the recording right now.
From the bowels of storytelling, as it were.
Nice segue.
To the sparkling heavens above. This is a story I came across in a different form, but it's all about the Methuselah star, which is apparently right now, according to science, may actually be older than the universe itself. So it is the oldest known object.
So how does that work?
So that's the question, what it's doing is actually causing physicists and the scientific community to have to kind of question some of the assumptions that we've made over the years, to the point of even questioning the validity of the Big Bang theory.
Right.
Not that it's disproving anything at this point, but if this star is as old as they think that it is, then it means that it was here before the Big Bang. So, which would mean the Big Bang may not be what we thought it was. There's all kinds of interesting theories going around right now, but basically, this star is around. It's like 14.5 billion years old. The universe itself is kind of clocking in at around 13.8 billion years. So that's not statistically a huge difference, but I mean it is a billion years difference.
It's a lot of years. I can't count that high actually.
Yeah, I ran out of fingers. So yeah, I even used the trick where I made my fists into the tins.
No, it still didn't work. Even with feet.
Yeah. So that does cause some problems. Named, of course, the Methuselah star, which it's named after a biblical character named Methuselah, who was known to be the oldest living human, according to the Bible. I think that's a Bible story. Did I just?
It sounds familiar.
I know Methuselah. You'd think I'd know more about.
He was one of them early books guys who lived. I think he was like 900 something years old, like Noah. Kind of thing. Yeah, I don't remember what he was doing.
That's
But
what it is. I don't know why I'm questioning it. I mean, I know that.
Yeah, it's biblical.
But,
I guess they named him because this dude Methuselah was like 900 something years old. So he's like
he was old. He was older. He was the oldest. He lived to be the oldest of anyone in the Bible.
Yes,
general
he was the
story.
longest lived. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they named this the Methuselah star because
that's cute. That's cute. It's like, how can a star be older than the universe? Just like, how can Methuselah be older than people are allowed to be old?
Yeah, right. So,
Right.
So there's a lot of interesting things coming out of this, and the way that they date this stuff is through like basically like radio waves, the pulses and things that are coming off of it, and the its distance, and the way it moves and things like that. There's all kinds of little factors that go into aging a star or determining the age of a star. So yeah,
it's just like cool. From their age, basically the brighter the intrinsic luminosity, the younger the star is.
Yeah.
So the Methuselah star is still burning, or at least was still burning when we're just seeing the light waves reach us now, of course, right? And we know how that works. So it could be dead, but we won't know for like another billion years or something. But I guess it's so dim. It must be that it's so dim that they're like, wow, it's really, really old.
Well, it's the speed. It's its speed that gives them their the date. So because it's a fast moving star, that tells them something about it. It says it moves at around 800,000 miles per hour and covers the width of the full moon in the sky every 1,500 years or so. So, so basically, if you were looking up at the sky and you see the moon, if the Methuselah star were on the, I guess let's just call it the moon's right-hand edge, then 1,500 years from now, it would be on its left-hand edge, which is apparently quite fast.
Apparently that's pretty fast. Because I'm sitting down here on Earth, and if I look at the moon, I can trace my finger around it a lot quicker than 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So it must be that there's some kind of time parallax happening, or some space.
Well, it's just that the distance, Yeah, right, exactly. Right. So we see certain. There's a clock-like movement to our galaxy and to the universe itself, in the relating galaxy stars. The galaxy itself is spinning. So it's really interesting when you start thinking about the dynamics of what all this means, because we have models of like the atomic world that aren't entirely accurate. We're starting to discover, but the idea of a nucleus, and then you've got electrons and protons, and the electrons are in an orbit around the nucleus, and you've got that concept, right? Well, if you just keep pulling back and pulling back and pulling back, you see that concept repeat in this almost fractal pattern out into infinity. And so our solar system is centered around our sun and moves in that something like that pattern. But then when you start spreading out further, the solar system itself is moving in a similar pattern, and then the galaxy is moving in a similar pattern. And so all that to say, like, that star is moving very, very fast somewhere out in the universe, but because of the movement, our relation to it and our movements, and the way everything is kind of aligned, it's not going to look very fast to us per se.
Right.
So
well, of course not. Yeah. I can't even wrap my mind around. There's a graphic here that actually does a good job, I think, of showing the Big Bang expansion.
Yeah.
I'm on space.com, and I'll link to this one too. But it's cool. I've never seen it kind of shown like this. There's this initial, they call it quantum fluctuations, and then the inflation, which is the Big Bang explosion, if you will, and then the afterglow light pattern that lasted a blink of an eye, 400,000 years. Yeah. And then the dark ages, which is just this big empty gap. And then all of a sudden the first stars about 400 million years ago, I think, either ago or that's how long they lasted. I'm not sure. But yeah, I just can't even wrap my mind around it. Space is big, and space is fast, and space is... that's pretty much it. I'm just like, okay, cool. So space is still big. Got it.
That sort of thing is like tantalizingly baffling to me. Every bit of it, when I start thinking about it, because we're if you really stop and think about it, even the largest thing that you can imagine that you've ever experienced on Earth, the largest structure you've ever come across, if you've ever stood in the edge of the Grand Canyon, no matter how vast something is on Earth, it is a less than a pinpoint to the rest of the galaxy, much less the universe. Even the solar system.
Mind-boggling.
Yeah. So all this footage is coming in now from Mars, because we have our robots, and we created the first planet known to be populated entirely by robots.
That's true. It's true.
When they turn cameras back toward the direction of Earth, at night, you can see the Earth, but it is this tiny little, pinprick of light, this bluish light. And when you think about that, that's what just sends the hairs on the back of my neck standing up, because you think about it, you're like, literally everything we know is contained in that little tiny pinprick of light.
Except the robots on Mars.
Except for the robots that we use to conquer Mars.
Yeah.
We sent our robot invaders to another planet. It is.
Emily and I just watched a show. We finished the season on Apple TV called For All Mankind. Have you heard of this one?
I've heard of this. I haven't watched it.
It's cool, man. It's a retelling of history if the Americans didn't win the space race, or put the first man on the moon, I should say. And so Russia gets there first. So then it's like, well, now we're going to send the first woman to the moon, and then it's now we're going to send the first black woman to the moon. And so there's this like the constant one-upping, of what we can do. And but then it starts to diverge a little bit, because it creates another alternate timeline, and it advances forward to pseudo-present times, semi-present times, 90s. That's kind of where I think we left off. But it's good. There's some really cool stuff there, but it's well done, and so you get to see some of this stuff play out with really good computer graphics. It's like Interstellar. That's one of my all-time favorite movies now. And Christopher Nolan, he hired a physicist for this stuff to just make it as accurate as possible in the frame of being fiction. But everything that happens in there, the way the time dilation occurs and things like that, it's just so mind-boggling. And the fact that it's probably pretty accurate is just even more crazy to me. It goes inside the quantum 4-dimensional tesseract at the end. Like I can't even with this stuff.
What's funny is
cool,
how that movie seems to have brought the term tesseract into more common language, and then the Avengers really solidified it. And they
had one in Transformers before that, right?
Did they? I don't.
The Transformers used a Tesseract in like 2 or 3 or whatever.
I'm going to be honest with you. Even while watching the Transformers movies, I forgot them. I literally forgot them while watching them.
I'm with you. I think I finally turned off the dinosaur one. I was like, I just can't with this anymore. I'm sorry, Michael Bay. I love you, but
I do not love Michael Bay. I take pot shots at Michael Bay in almost every book I write.
I used to love Michael Bay. I mean, Armageddon was such a cool movie, and then he put space dementia at the end of it, and I was like, I don't know what you're doing here. I don't know. He gave what's his name? Space dementia. Remember?
Steve Buscemi.
Steve Buscemi. Yeah.
So the first time I ever encountered the term tesseract was in Swiftly Tilting Planet. Those books. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, okay. No, I haven't read those.
What was it? Is it Madeline Lingle?
Is that Wrinkle in Time?
Wrinkle in Time, yeah.
Yeah, Madeline Lingle, yeah.
Yeah, in those books, she brings up the tesseracts, a tesseract. And
interesting.
And I still remember sort of remember the way it was described. It's like a folding of space and time that created this, this thing that they could use to move around in time. That's
essentially what the Interstellar Kip Thorne, I think, is the physicist's name. I bought the book. He wrote a book that uses a lot of the imagery that they created in Interstellar to explain the physics that he used when working with Christopher, and I think his brother Jonathan helped him write it when they wrote the movie. And they use the same thing. It's a cool visual. It's like brains or something. They're kind of layered around and on top of each other and stuff. And so they're like, well, this is sort of linear time, but it's all wound up and twisted and stuff. And so if you pierce through here using a black hole or whatever, you can change that. You can go to another place in time.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was cool. It was really, really interesting and really, again, mind-boggling. And I don't understand any of it anymore. But even at the time, I was like, "Oh, this is really cool." I don't get it. Which is that's how it is with most things. I got
well, and now these days I don't. If any science fiction, I haven't written pure science fiction in a while, but if I won't bring up a tesseract now because there are too many like armchair physicists now who know all about it. I will have to admit I'm probably one of them just because I could not explain the math of this thing, or even probably I'd have to brush up in order to give you a really good description or a metaphor for the thing. But yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, I
neither here nor there.
That's the challenge of hard sci-fi. That's the challenge of the hard sci-fi thing, right? It's like, well, okay, hard sci-fi, you have to be accurate. They want their math, they want their engineering to check out, they want their time to be perfect, and there's just so much we don't know, and that's why it's fiction. We can make that stuff up. We can fill in the blanks, I should say.
Yeah.
And so hard sci-fi though is hard. It's challenging because for me, I don't know that stuff intuitively, and I don't feel like researching every sentence I write.
That's because you are not drinking enough civet coffee.
That's probably true.
If you had more poop coffee,
some poop kombucha, fermented coffee, then I'm sure
if you set your watch by the Methuselah star. Time
would go very quickly, apparently, if I did that.
Isn't it relative? Okay, but it's relative.
If it's relative. So if it's going really fast, then time would seem to go very slow. If you're the Methuselah star.
If the Methuselah star is your minute hand, or even your second hand, then it's 1,500 years to cover the distance of the moon. So,
which would be what, half of 30 days?
If you held a clock up and let the second hand tick from one side of the moon to the other, I wonder how many ticks that would be.
So you're listening to stuff that's math and also is hard.
That's the stuff that keeps us up at night, though. That's what we talk.
Maybe that keeps you up at night. I'm like Methuselah.
I'm on my fourth cup of civet coffee, and I am thinking about the Methuselah star and tesseracts. That's where I am.
The problem is I don't drink coffee at night. I drink something a little harder, and my brain starts to go to mush, and I start thinking, can I make my own civet coffee? I believe you could. I bet I could make my own.
Listen, don't undervalue the shoving like your neighbor full of coffee beans, but just like corn.
Just like just like corn.
That's where we're making our mistake, man. We need to be marketing a very unique and special popcorn. Yeah, that's where we are leaving money on the table, is what we'll doing.
Call it corny luwak.
Nobody out there do this. Do not go out and harvest poop corn.
Well, if you do, just give us royalties, man.
Give us a slice of that. We'll endorse it. We'll make you an official
poop
sponsor.
Corn. What? It's called poop corn, of course. Why did I?
Poop corn.
It's not called what? Corny luwak. It's called poop corn.
It markets itself.
It also Jiffy Poop.
Jiffy Poop.
Okay,
that's went downhill fast.
That got punny real quick, didn't it? Sorry to keep punishing you all, listeners, dear listeners. I'm gonna look at the stats just fall off a cliff here next week after this one.
I think this will be our best show ever.
I think this could be the one.
This could be the one.
Sends us to the moon, to the Methuselah star.
This is the viral meme version of the show that everybody discovers.
Poop corn. There's an episode for you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's probably a good time to wrap it up, wouldn't you say?
Yep. I think we've covered every angle of those two stories.
I think we've clearly figured out this Methuselah star business. If any physicists out there has any questions, by all means, feel free to.
Normally, you'll bring a topic that we can go on about for a very long time, and I think we got bummed out over the consequences.
Well, that's because you were like, well, it turns out I went and Googled more and saw some images, and now I'm sad.
What am I supposed to do? This is what I do.
I told you not to do that. I told you not to do that.
want to give our listeners the impression that we are endorsing this coffee. Don't go buy this.
That's
coffee.
why I was trying to disclaim that up front. It's stuff that's real. You may not have known that was real, but it's also cool in the sense that it's an interesting thing that people do. But yeah, it's not cool that they're doing this to these animals. So.
In terms of being a thriller writer, I could see that it reminds me a little bit of the whole blood avocado thing, which we can talk about on another episode. But the consequences of something being popular, especially in the food industry, which has a limit. The challenges are that thing starts off rare. It has a shelf life. It can't last forever, right? And then production, when people figure out a way to produce it at a higher level, but they're still asking the same price for it,
right.
Numbers like that start to get to people's heads, and they start manipulating things, and that's when stuff gets scary, So,
yeah, no, I could definitely see some good thriller bad guys coming out of this, for sure. At tack on that, somebody out there thinks it's got the Kopi Luwak has some healing properties, and it's over, right? Because then then they'll turn it into a drug, and it'll just.
All anybody's got to do is say they gave it to 10 COVID patients, and all of them got up and danced and walked out of the hospital. That's all.
That's true. That's right.
Whether or not they could prove it or not, they'd be squeezing poop out of these little guys faster than they can make it. So
poop corn.
I'm still a little heartbroken over the civets. So
all right, well then you heard it from Kevin first, folks. Do not go
on.
Google this stuff. Kopi Luwak is real. The Methuselah star is real. It's
also cool.
It's also cool, and that is probably a good point to say, see you next week.
All right.
I'm your host with Kevin Tumlinson, our other host, and I guess that means we're co-hosts. That's too many syllables, so we're just the hosts. And I hope you think we're the hostess with the mostists. The mostest cool facts and knowledge, bringing them to you out of the goodness of our own hearts.
Perhaps in not the most articulated way, but sure.
I think it was pretty good articulated. Out of our genuine love for you all, we just feel like we need to share this stuff with you every week. So thanks for tuning in once again. Thanks for being here with us. And do let us know if there's something that you think is cool, like poop corn. You can drop us a line at stuffthat'sreal.com. We are 24/7 poring over your questions and comments that come in, just waiting patiently and anxiously as comments roll in. That's a little bit of sarcasm there for you, just to close out the show. But we do have a way to contact us. So reach out, let us know, and we would be happy to cover the thing that you think is cool.
And tune in next week when we talk about urine tea.
I might not have to be here next week. We will see you later, folks.
Adios.
Stuff That's Real.